Wow, it's weird. It's stopping the music like right on the dime. Good morning, party people. Welcome to Office Hours, the webcast where sometimes I just answer your questions about SQL Server. Today I'm going to start instead with coding in the first responder kit. Coding's probably the wrong word. I'm going to be reviewing pull requests, code that other people have submitted in order to decide whether to accept it or what changes I want to make to the code. So today's session will be useful if you're not used to GitHub. If you're not used to GitHub and seeing how the coordination of an open source project goes. Aramazda asks, how did you get from the choppa to the studio so quickly? That's a video from this past week. I took my parents on a helicopter tour of the Grand Canyon. We flew on Maverick helicopters from downtown Vegas out on the Strip over to the Grand Canyon. You fly over Hoover Dam. It's really cool. I can't recommend it enough. It's the best way, I think, to see the Grand Canyon. And Surly Duff says, when I saw your YouTube notification for flying over Hoover Dam, imagine my disappointment when I saw it wasn't a drone video. Yeah, no, it's gorgeous, and they're even air conditioned, which is nice. The choppers are air conditioned, which is important this time of year in Las Vegas. My parents had driven; they were driving across country in a motorhome. My dad and stepmom were driving across country in a motorhome, and they got to Vegas, and they were debating whether or not they wanted to go into the Grand Canyon with the motorhome. You can do that and go camping and get to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, all kinds of stuff. And I said, why don't we just take a helicopter tour so you can see if you want to be there for an extended period of time? And so we go and we fly out there. It's just desolate. You know, there's nothing out there. It's once the helicopter shuts off, it's just beautiful peace and quiet. And we got done with that, and my parents were like, actually, I don't need to go drive into the Grand Canyon. This was a perfect, kind of sampler thing because it's so hot. You don't really want to hang out there for an extended period of time. Even we were out there for 30 minutes at like the base of the canyon, and we were all huddled under umbrellas because the sun is just so baking hot. It's like being in an air fryer. Good morning, G Surgeon. Good morning, Alpha Cronus. A couple of folks checking in here. DK Kimbo says the helicopter melted. The helicopter, what the pilot said is the helicopter has a max takeoff temperature of 118. You're not supposed to start the engines when it's higher than 118 degrees Fahrenheit. And he said that this was right on the edge, and they actually don't fly in the afternoons for that exact reason, because they can't touch down in the Grand Canyon and then take back off because it's too hot in the summer, which is pretty mind-blowing. All right, so let's take a look at the first responder kit and see what's going on inside there. So I've got a web browser up. I don't actually usually work in Windows. I usually work in Mac, but this is just nice to have Windows in here for like a remote desktop. Keeps it nice and tidy for the stream. Plus, a lot of you probably use Windows, so you're probably used to it. Good morning, General SQL. So let's see here. Why didn't my chat refresh? Let me just check and see what's going on with that, because I want to be able to see chat in a window over here. There it goes. Cool. So let's go take a look at, these are organized in chronological order from the earliest submitted or down here up to the most recent. So down here, Billy says a white theme, sad face. It's because I just use disposable Windows VMs whenever I do stuff like this. My own Mac desktop is dark mode. SP All Night Log error handling improvements. I have requested a change to this PR, and I'm waiting on the author to do that. At some point, I'm just going to close that PR. SP Blitz Index, more inclusive wording. I am working on that. It's not ready for release yet. So the first one that's in here was opened 2 weeks ago by SQL Slinger. Let's go take a look and see what's going on with this. This add keep CDC parameter. I'll click on it. And so what this is about is most likely SP database restore. SP database restore is a stored procedure that does exactly what it says on the tin. So add the keep CDC option to restore database recovery. Now, normally when I'm reviewing pull requests, I want people to submit an issue first before they do a pull request. This seems fairly straightforward, though. So in order to understand what SQL Slinger did, I'm going to click on the Files Changed link. And one of the things that I just utterly adore about GitHub is it gives you this really nice, concise, on the left-hand side is what the code looked like before, the right-hand side is what changed. So you can see it color codes the things that have been added and removed. So it looks like Rebecca's the first name of SQL Slinger. Rebecca added a keep CDC parameter, and she also added if keep CDC equals 1, add a parameter for keep CDC. That seems fairly straightforward. Now you'll notice that there are other changes here. Looks like set SQL. Oh, she's putting a carriage return in at the end of the dynamic SQL, just making it easier to troubleshoot. That's totally cool. So if I'm cool with all of those changes, and I am, I can review it. Now to show you what the review is, I'm going to hide the Slack chat here for a sec, or the Twitch chat here for just a second. There's a review changes button over here, and so since I reviewed the code, I'm going to review the changes, and I'm going to say, thanks for the pull request, looks good, emerging into the dev branch, will be in the next release with credit to you in the release notes. Then I'm going to approve it because that's all cool. We'll say approve and then submit review. And then, so it's brought me back to the pull request. Now it says I can merge this pull request. I'll go ahead and merge it and confirm. And then I also like to tag these issues. Over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to assign Rebecca, because it was her work, I'm going to put labels on it to define what piece of code it was about, and I'm going to tag it with the milestone for next month's release. And then that way, when I go to generate the release notes, it's going to be easier to understand what happened. So we'll put in, it's in that August release. Labels are, it is an enhancement for SP Database Restore. Is SP Database Restore not in the list? It is. There we go. And assign Rebecca SQL Slinger. There we go. All right, so there is the first pull request down. Yay! I totally love that. Let's put the Slack chat back up, or the Twitch chat back up on the screen so y'all can see it. DK Kimbo says, you mean when GitHub Copilot generates the release notes? Definitely not. Oh, Mirka, good morning, everyone. He says, or Mirka says, almost evening in the Netherlands. We also have G Surgeon in here, who's from the Netherlands as well. Surfing DBA says, good morning from Dallas, Texas, is also known as the sun. It is currently 87 in Vegas. Keep in mind that this is 8:23 a.m. 87 in Vegas, on the road to a high of 105 today. Good times. Surly Dev says if you're using Zoom It, you could have used the live Zoom to edit those notes while zoomed in. Unfortunately, it doesn't work well over remote desktop. I totally used to do that exact same thing, but they did something in the most recent version of Zoom It that it no longer works, which is kind of a bummer. All right, next up is SP Blitz Index Column Store. So I'm actually actively working on this. I am working on a new Mastering Column Store class, and so I'm adding more features in the SP Blitz Index Column Store visualization. So I'm not ready to merge that yet, so I'm going to skip that one. Next up is Eric Darling, Get Plans from Cache. So let's go see what's going on with that. So he says, add a result set in SP Blitzlock that goes out to the plan cache looking for queries involved in deadlocks. Oh, I freaking love it. That sounds fantastic. Let's go take a look at what files he changed here. And I have a feeling that this might be a lot of changes. Yeah, if I scroll down, this is a whole lot of changes. Now, because I even changed things like, looks like tabs and spaces inside there, because I pretty well trust what Eric does, I'm not going to review the lines individually, but I am going to run it to at least make sure that it compiles and works. So to do that, to just run it, I am going to go over here and say, show me this file. I'm going to go get the file contents raw, and I'm going to go run it on my own SQL Server Management Studio and make sure it actually at least compiles and executes. Good morning, SQL Dev DBA. So we'll copy it all out of there. We'll fire open SQL Server Management Studio. I'll go into the master database and execute that. All right, so we put in Eric's version of SP Blitzlock. Now let's run it. So let's just run it as is, SP Blitzlock, and we'll see Blitzlock. First, I just want to see that it actually executes, because sometimes these things do not. Okay, so we're in so far. It actually worked. Now, we haven't had deadlocks. So we're going to need, what I would like to do is I would like to put a couple of deadlocks into the system health session so that we can see this thing in action. And then maybe I can take a screenshot of it too for the release notes so people know what they're looking for. To do that, I am going to go hop over into my mastering query tuning class, BrentOzar.com, and go get a, who's it that? Go get a deadlock query. Go copy this out. So copy and new query window, paste. And then we will go over to get the other script, because there are two scripts involved with this. Actually, let's do this one. Copy, paste, and paste. I'll put these in two separate windows. I need to be in the Stack Overflow database for this to work. And then come over here. Let's see here. We will create a stored procedure, execute. Now, if I've done everything correctly, which is also kind of a dice roll, because I wasn't like planning to set up this demo, so I may not have the right indexes in place or anything like that. But over on the left-hand side, I've got a stored procedure that casts an upvote. I got one user that's upvoting someone else's posts. Over on the right-hand side, I'm going to have a similar user upvoting the other person's posts, and they're going to end up in a deadlock fighting over each other's users' rows to each give themselves reputation points. So let's see if we get lucky and this produces a deadlock. Where's my drum roll button? I don't have a drum roll button right now in Stream Deck. I have high hopes that this is going to work. Let's see. Maybe. Yay! That's fantastic. So I have a deadlock here where one of these deadlocked the other. Let's go ahead and do it again. Just do it again. Execute. Let's do it again just to make it more likely that the default trace is going to have this in there. Is it the default? No, it's not the default trace. It's the default system health extended event session. I never know the right combination of words to string together for that. Okay, so that's all done. Now let's go run SP Blitzlock again, and let's see if, yes, it's amazing, ladies and gentlemen, we actually have results. So let's see what it is that Eric added inside here. So for those of you who haven't seen SP Blitzlock's result sets before, the top result set, if you just heard the phone ringing, that's because there's a painter trying to call me. Hold on a second, let me tell him. No calls, please. We'll call later. Thanks. It has three result sets now. Top result set is the itemized list of deadlocks that have happened, both the winners and the losers. This result set is kind of like an extended events, or it's kind of like a business intelligence slice and dice front end that gives you all kinds of analytics about the deadlocks. This is actually where I usually go because it gives you information about like grouped together queries. This one is the brand new one that has SP Blitz Cache. So let's go take a look and see what's inside there. Let's go see here. So it has how many times it's run, physical reads, SQL handle, that's all cool. Has the query plan, so that's totally new. I love it. That's fantastic. So let's get a screenshot of cheap seats for the release notes. Grab a screenshot of that. And then let's come over here and say, come back over to our GitHub issues. And so we'll say, here's the pull. Oops. I'm not going to do a code review on this one because I haven't looked through the T-SQL in order to see what it is. So instead, I'm just going to say assign it to Eric in terms of the, oops, not assign it to Eric, put the milestone in there for August. And I'm going to say, thanks for the pull request. Looks good. Merging into the dev branch. Will be in the next release with credit to you in the release notes. Looks really spiffy too. All right, close, oops, comment. And then we will merge the pull request into our development branch. For those of you who are avid users of the First Responder Kit, you want to play with these new features before they go out live to the public. If you go to code, when you go into GitHub and you're looking at like downloading the First Responder Kit, make sure that you're in the dev branch. There's a little drop down over there. By default, if I remember right, the public branch is probably the main branch. But if you want to play with the new stuff before it's released, go to the dev branch. And then you can click on the individual scripts that you want, like SP Blitz, SP Blitzlock, etc. You can click on the individual ones of those and you can download them individually. The installation scripts, the things that say like install all scripts and install core blitz with query store, those don't get updated until the actual release. I run a little PowerShell command that merges them all together, and I update the dates and the release numbers and things like that. So instead, you just have to grab the individual scripts if there's one thing that you want to play with. All right, so let's see here. What's the next pull request that is in the list? The next pull request in there, SP Blitz cache fails when executed on instances with readable secondary replicas. This is an interesting issue because it's happened several times over the last decade where when SP Blitz cache was run on a server with readable, with non-accessible databases, Microsoft keeps changing things about the DMBs where they don't slightly work on readable secondaries. When they require read-only acts, or they require you to specify read-only intent in the connection string. So this particular one says add internal readable database 32767 in the list for exclusion. Someone actually had in their plan cache as one of the most resource intensive queries something that was running in the resource database. Resource database is a hidden system database that has system stored procedures in it. So that was kind of amazing. So let's see, we'll assign it to them, Ambambian. We'll say request is a bug, and that is SP Blitz cache. And then the milestone is the next upcoming milestone. Let's take a look at the file that they changed. And so this is pretty simple inside here. Insert into, there's a list of databases that we won't look at in SP Blitz cache, that we won't gather more information about. And we've already had a list in there of databases that required read-only intent in their connection strings. I love this solution. It's just really nice and easy. Go insert into that list database number 32767, that hard-coded resource one. Renegade Larson subscribing for 15 months straight. That's amazing. That's absolutely fantastic. Thanks, Renegade Larson. Okay, so let's accept that change. We'll say thanks for the pull request. Looks good. Merging into the dev branch. Will be in the next release with credit to you in the release notes. All right, we will approve that and submit. And then let's merge that into the dev branch. And then after that merges, we're also going to put a note in the issue, because this is the first one who actually put an issue in for their pull request. Label is it's a bug in SP Blitz cache, and milestone is the August release. And then we'll put the note in there about the pull request, close it. There we go. And then let's come back up to the pull request. Do we have what, one more? We have one more. Eric Darling also add some permission checks into SP Blitz. Now, let's talk about SP Blitz for just a second. Historically, I have tried to avoid adding security stuff into SP Blitz because I didn't want someone running SP Blitz on their production server and saying, oh, SP Blitz didn't report any security issues, I must be fine. I don't want to be in the security business. I hate being in the security business. So as long as it's not like security, here's a penetration risk kind of thing, then I'm up for it, like permissions checks for accounts. So let's go see what it is. There we go. So let's see what's inside here. So Surly Dev likes the t-shirt. Let's go over to, he says, this feels like a somewhat naive set of checks. I don't know a ton about security. It may clash where someone uses execute as. It's incomplete because I need to round up commands. I fully expect this to get rejected, but it get me error-free runs in a tightly locked down SQL Server environment. Oh, so what he's probably doing, oh, I didn't understand what the title was. What he's probably doing is checking to see that SP Blitz will run in a secure environment. Okay, that I actually love. Let's go take a look at the what's inside there. What in the what? Oh, that's tricky. Skip trace, skip dbcc. So these are these parameters? Let's go take a look at this part of the code, view file. So it's line 189. I think these are internal variables. I don't think that they're, yeah, so they're internal variables. It's not something that it's a parameter. Okay, cool. So then starting permissions checks. If Israel is sysadmin, let's see here. If not exists, permissions from view server state. That's kind of cool. I don't have a problem with this. This is kind of nifty. He's checking each of the security permissions. I also get a little nervous about adding DMV queries to SQL Server when I don't know the DMV very well. So like functions around permissions, I don't know if there are edge cases where they don't take like tens of seconds in order to return on servers with large numbers of users or roles. I think this one's probably pretty safe, though. We're not doing a SP for each DB inside here, I don't think. From values, I think that all looks good. So now, okay, so what he's done is he's also used, SP Blitz has this skip checks table. Skip checks will let you load specific checks into the table, and then they'll be skipped at runtime. What this is useful for is, for example, with Amazon RDS or Azure SQL DB, where they take away some of the permissions from you. So we just check that table as we're moving through and say, okay, we need to skip this check. So I kind of like this. I like where this is going. Cube says, would these checks be something you would put in a common stored procedure you could call from all procs? I hate dependencies. You would not believe how frequently people update just one stored procedure, or they only install one stored procedure. So for troubleshooting purposes, I don't want to have separate stored procedures. Even like with like SP all night log and SP database restore, people were like, what do you mean, Ola Hollengren? What scripts do I need to have installed? It's amazing. People just don't put those things together. So I'm going to give this one a review. Thanks for the pull request. I like how you did this. Merging. Oh, I can't approve it yet. I actually need to check and make sure that it runs. Let's go make sure that it runs. So let's view the file and get the raw contents. I should run this in Amazon RDS, because there's a pretty good chance it won't run in Amazon RDS. There are all kinds of gotchas around the permissions in RDS. So let's see here. I've at least executed it. We'll go just execute it and see if it runs in plain old SQL Server. And then I'll also, let's run it with a couple of other parameters. Actually, I'll go ahead and stop it. Execute. So we'll run it with a couple of parameters here and see. Survey says, okay, there we go. All right, now in terms of bug checking, I didn't check to see that it returns the same number of rows. I didn't check to see that Eric's code isn't accidentally skipping some checks because the permissions aren't correct. If I was going to be a really good tester, I think that I would actually do that. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm not actually going to accept this one yet. I do want to accept it, but just not quite yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put over in the issue, or in the pull request, I am going to put a couple of notes. I love this idea. I did a really quick test. I did a really quick code review and test, and it worked at first glance. I need to check a few other things before merging the pull request. So I need to check, here I'll zoom this up bigger so y'all can see it a little better as I'm typing. So I need to check that it returns, or test that it returns the same number of rows as the prior version, just to make sure it's not accidentally muting something it shouldn't. Test on Amazon RDS, test on Azure SQLDB managed instance, and I think that's it. I think that should do okay. Put starting permissions tests in the messages tab to troubleshoot long-running queries. There we go. All right, so I'll put that in there, and then I'll come back to this. Now, I'm probably not going to come back to this right away because 9 o'clock, my housekeeper is coming. So I have to go down and meet the housekeeper and tell her what I want her to do. And then also I have people working in the backyard, which is kind of funny. So I have a bunch of stuff going on today. Mirka subscribed at Tier 1. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. That's cool. But that gives y'all a rough idea of what it's like to accept pull requests in the first responder kit. You know, it's really funny. Sometimes with open source, people will say, well, here's an idea you could implement. Aren't you thankful for that idea? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you have no idea how much work is involved to write the code, to test it on different versions of SQL Server, to document it, etc. Even just approving pull requests takes time. Even just going in and saying, all right, this code is good, this code is not good, here are code things that I need to tweak. It's amazing how much work is involved with that. So I've got it down to where I usually only go in there like every 2 weeks, and then I'll go through and review all the pull requests in one batch. I used to try and be good about approving them right now, but not quite as good. Frag King says, I'm sure GitHub will release an AI for that. You know what I wish that they would do? I wish they would make it easy to test code. And I know people will say things like, well, there's all kinds of actions and, AppVeyor and things like that. Yes, it's a whole collection of tools, but then it's left up to you to actually build that. I wish that they would make it easier to test code, to just say, yes, this actually compiles. Yes, it produces the same results that it did before, or no, it produces different results than it did before. For example, here are different versions of SQL Server that I would like to test on to make sure that it actually compiles. I would totally pay for that. All right. Well, there is office hours for this morning. We have another office hours coming next week. And then next week, so next Wednesday and Thursday, I'll go back to answering questions. If you want to influence which questions I answer during those sessions, you can go to pollgab.com/room/Brento, and then you can upvote the questions that you'd like to see me answer. We've already got more questions in there than I'll probably hit in the next week. So that helps you decide which ones I talk through. Frag King says test containers with actions might work, but yeah, I need to build it yourself. Yeah, it's a whole lot of work. It's kind of there's funny there. I'm not going to name names, but there's someone who does a lot of automated testing work, like CI/CD type stuff, in the SQL Server industry, and I said, hey, here's the project that I want. I want to spin up, say, Express Edition instances of 2012, 2014, 2016, 2017, so forth, and run the install scripts against there and verify the number of rows that come back out. Can you do that as part of an automated action thing? And unfortunately, the person spent a little bit of time on it, like a couple hours, and said, you know what, this would be a Herculean amount of work. It would probably be a $20,000 to $50,000 project. And I was like, yep, nope, not gonna happen, because it is a lot of work. It's more work than it sounds like. Express Edition, at least you can get that for free and spin up containers with it relatively free. But yeah, just total pain in the rear. Okay, so there we go. We will stop there for today. Hope y'all had fun and learned something. I will see you next week on next week's office hours. Adios.